Welcome to the White Coat Network, where we bring experts from diverse fields of healthcare across the globe. We clarify the facts, finding the truth behind the myths, and breaking down the rumors. And of course, we also sneak peek into the lives of experts beyond the white coat. Hello everyone, welcome to the White Coat Network, where we bring a lot of doctors and innovators and investors, those who are working in healthcare domain. We have good discussion with them, we have chat with them, and we just try to learn a lot from them. And today we have a very special guest with us, Devang Mehta ji. Devang Mehta ji is an accomplished venture capital professional. He has more than 25 years of operating experience in early stage startups, as well as investing experience as a VP at Anthill Ventures, and he's also working as an angel investor. He's currently advising both venture capital funds and startups on growth, as well as fundraising endeavors and strategic insights. He has degrees in computer science and engineering, and also MBA from Carnegie Mellon University's Tepes School of Business. He holds immense experience, and also he has worked in Indian ecosystem, startup ecosystem, also Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. So he is one of India's most favorite, I would say, and the person who has been keen into the startup ecosystem for more than 25 years. So today we are going to ask few questions to him, which will cover mainly questions from healthcare domain, especially into the startup ecosystem, from the investment perspective, and a lot of questions would be coming from the people, those who are already working in this segment. So without taking much time, please welcome Devang ji. Hello Devang ji, welcome to the White Coat Network.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks. Such I'm delighted to be here.
First of all, thank you so much once again. I keep reading your posts on LinkedIn, and you have been very keen, interested towards writing about startups. And especially today, we are going to talk about the startups which are into healthcare and how they are growing, how they are scaling, right? And why don't we start with a very simple question, which is very favorite question of mine as well, right? Nowadays, a lot of innovations are happening in healthcare. Healthcare innovation often starts with passion. Like every startup founder starts with a passion that I want to solve this particular problem, rather than sometimes business clarity. So a lot of startups, they just come with passion, but they are not able to scale themselves. So what do you think about it, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I think your question partly answers itself. I think passion is integral to a startup. It's one of the few constants in the journey. Passion and the ambition inherent in the founding team is something that is critical for success, because startups are bound to face tough times. There'll be times when funding rounds don't come through, and business deals get elongated and things like that. And the passion is the one thing that takes a startup through all these trying times. Of course, the depth of the innovation and moat has to be genuine, as does the execution capability. But passion is the glue that holds everything together.
Perfect. Recently, I saw that you wrote one post on LinkedIn as well, right? You are associated with one startup, if I'm not wrong, that is Early Sign. I would love to hear about it because recently there was a news that this startup actually got the FDA approval as well. So I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, Early Sign is easily my most favorite startup of all time. They're based in Nagpur. They do early cancer detection through saliva. So they've developed a highly innovative kit that you literally spit into, and in a few hours you get early indications of whether you are prone to cancer or have early signs of cancer or not, essentially. These signals are determined at the pre-cancerous stage, what they sometimes call the lesion stage. So it's highly preemptive. And as you know, in cancer, early detection is literally the difference between life and death. So to do this in a highly non-invasive way, without no prick, no blood draw, no biopsy, very affordable. You'll soon see them in the market. And to do this for the masses is fantastic, and it's something that has tremendous potential in India and globally.
Oh, you rightly said that nowadays, most of the startups, they are working on prevention, right? While interacting with few founders, those who are already doing some innovations in healthcare, always love to interact with them, and this startup is one of them, and I loved it. I would also love to understand your perspective. What are the challenges? What are the consistently gaps that you are seeing when you see these very dynamic and energetic founders when they come to you?
Right. So I think the biggest problem is articulation. I think there's a lot of good ideas, there's good innovation, but they fail to explain uh, to investors, probably to even partners, and anyone in the ecosystem of how they are really different and how they can scale. So, startups are of two kinds broadly. One who are highly innovative, like early sign, they have a genuine technology and IP moat. And then second is what I described with incremental innovation with great execution capability. Whichever bucket you fall into, you have to be good at explaining what you do and how you scale to become, a 100 crore, 1,000 crore company, what have you. And I think 90% plus of founders I've seen get stuck to their idea, get stuck to what they are doing, but they just don't see the big picture. They don't communicate it in a way that impresses and charms investors all the way from angels to PE players and everything in between. And as a result, they fail to secure funding. And if you don't secure funding, unless you have dramatic unit economics, you cannot scale beyond the point. And that's where the biggest failure rate occurs.
Absolutely, it's a learning for a lot of founders. I would say this advice will help a lot of founders, those who are coming into this domain. That's really wonderful. We have been seeing one trend like doctors and healthcare professionals are becoming entrepreneur. I would say doctorpreneur and face a mindset shift. What is the toughest adjustment they must make and they should make, I would say, in your opinion?
Yeah, so it is a good trend of doctorpreneurs coming into the ecosystem. For the most part, again, they don't put their commercialization hat on at the right time. They don't become disciplined in building a company. They remain disciplined towards building the science. And there's an important difference between the two. So you can definitely further science. You can do tons of good research and publish papers and all that, which is great, of course. But if you decide to enter the startup ecosystem, then you need to be good at selling, right? So when I say selling, is not just selling a license to a customer. You need to sell the concept. You need to sell the idea, the vision, the strategy to investors, to co-founders, to employees, to incubators, even to interns, who these days have a lot of choices as to which startup they want to join. So that selling capability has to be there. And for that, one needs to have a slightly different set of skills, slightly to fairly different set of skills than those required for furthering a science or a research.
If I need to connect these 2 points, like one founder is coming to you and pitching his idea to you, and you said that one problem that you have been seeing constantly, that is articulation. And if I connect this particular thing, articulation, to the selling point, scaling the business, can we connect these two things together? Because when you build something and now you have to scale it, you have to sell it. Again, it's a art of communication. Communicate to your audience, communicate to your customer. So I would love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's really the same thing. Again, don't get me wrong. You need to have genuine innovation or genuine execution capability. So let's start with innovation. You have a great innovation. You preempt a disease. You catch it at a pre-disease stage, be it cancer, diabetes, asthma, anything like that. Okay, so you have good innovation. You have good moat. You have genuine IP. Now you need to go out and sell, quote unquote, sell. When I say sell, is you talk to an investor, be it an angel or a seed investor, you need to explain how this can become a unicorn. That's what they want to hear, that if I put in 10 rupees today, how it will become 100, 200 rupees in the next 3 to 5 years. So you need to explain aspects of the science and how it's differentiated, but you also need to explain why this is a large market and it's ripe for conquest. When you go to a customer, let's say you're selling into a pharma company or you're selling into the consumer market, you need to be savvy at explaining the benefits, why it's good to use your product or service, why you need to price it right, try to capture good chunks of the market. So you need to have business savvy at that stage to be able to build a scalable company. And then internally, you need to have processes and operations that can quickly scale. You suddenly grow from 2 licenses to 200 licenses. You need to have the ability to hire people quickly, to train them in your DNA and the operations, and to quickly absorb a high volume of incoming business. So all those things require skills that include the science and innovation, but also include business operations and outside selling.
This is the valid point actually you have made over here, and I think people, those who are stuck on this particular stage, if they have built something and they are scaling it, they are growing, then they would definitely would love to get your advice, and they will implement in their work. And one thing actually I see on different platforms, it might be LinkedIn, it might be Twitter, right now X, a lot of people, those who do not come from healthcare domain, still they are building good startups in healthcare, and they are getting good investment from the VCs, from the firms, right? And now they are scaling. And one curious question from my side, I have seen the trend that there are many startups in the past, in the last couple of years, those who came into the market, and they tried a lot to scale it, but they could not do that, right? I would love to understand these two things. Like, first one is non-medicos or non-healthcare people are coming into and building something, and second one is many healthcare startup founders came into the market but they could not scale it.
I think if I were to get a question and drift right, a founding team needs to have at least two co-founders. This is my firm belief. One good at the science or the innovation, and one good at the business execution. So often the answer is the same. The founding team lacks one or two, one of these two. Either they're really good at innovation, they've built a lot of IP and a moat, but they just are not good at entering the market and execution and go-to-market strategies. They don't price it right, they don't message right, they're not good at selling. On the other side, might be people who are very good at execution. They have scaled consumer businesses, they have built a large companies, maybe in a slightly different domain than healthcare, and they try and replicate the same success in healthcare, and then they just don't understand the innovation well enough to be able to replicate that success, which is often a function of not hiring a good CTO or chief scientific officer that has come up with some genuinely differentiated product or service. So I think it's just usually one of the two.
Understood. Few days back, one student, medical students, he is pursuing an MBBS right now. He questioned and he just texted me on LinkedIn, and he was just talking about, sir, I do have one idea and I want to build something in healthcare, but I do not come from business background. I don't know how to do it, how to scale it, but I have a great idea. If someone who wants to build a good innovation in healthcare, but do not come from a business background, how that person can scale it, and how that person should reach to the people like you, those who can help. As I have been seeing you, you are not only helping the startups into the investment part, but you're guiding them. You're becoming mentor to them and putting your 25 years of experience with them. So this help is really great. Coming from any background, a student or any student or any person wants to build something. Over to you, please.
Yeah, I think thankfully and luckily for students in today's era, you don't need to come from a business family necessarily to start a company. There's a lot of resources available. A lot of premier institutes and even otherwise have incubators associated with academic institutions. So one good idea is definitely try and enter one of these incubators that will guide you through various aspects of a business, from the most tactical as to forming a private limited, to ESOPs, to compliance, hygiene, and things like that, and let you focus on the science, assuming you're a technical founder. Of course, there's definite value, I'd like to think, in associating with advisors like me that can add a lot of value from a commercial standpoint to connect to investors and many other aspects of growth. I'm a big believer in LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool to connect to people. One does a homework, right, and literally writes a search query, you can reach advisors who will be willing to help you in your journey. So I think it's a function of that. Always be very well networked. I always tell entrepreneurs, students, just reach deep into your network. This is people you've studied with, people you've worked with, your neighbors, cousins, friend, uncle, aunt. Always reach out to help. Always solicit advice, and if you're in the funding part, then there's nothing better than a friends and family round to start with. Few tens of lakhs offers a good buffer to get started. These people are usually very forgiving of failures, usually friends and family, because they know you and they believe in you. So that is, if you're able to raise a small friends and family round, that's often the best way to start a business and have some room for experimentation, shall we say.
Your answer definitely will help these students or someone who is coming from non-business background and wants to build something great in India. And one more thing I would love to tell everybody: if you are building something, then LinkedIn is a platform where you can connect to Mr. Devang Mehta ji, so that he can help you out. He is just helping like more than I would say 15 to 20 healthcare founders. So he is just a text away, if I'm not wrong, on LinkedIn, right? So if you have eager and hunger in you to do something, to build something, right? While I was just reading about you, I was just watching one conversation between you and Mr. Vineet, right, on YouTube, and you were sharing your experience that you have not only seen the Silicon Valley ecosystem, but you have also worked with some people in the startups. And then, how do you see the difference between the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem and Indian startup ecosystem? What are the differences that you found over the years?
I think there's some significant differences. One is specifically for biotech. Again, biotech, not necessarily healthcare. So biotech innovations from India are just not understood well enough. To the point where valuations literally for the same technology can be dramatically different in India versus the Valley. So Silicon Valley startups understand this. They start building out a product. They don't worry that much about revenue and all that, because investors in them understand that reaching a certain inflection point, let's say a phase 2 clinical trial, results in great valuation accretion. And they stay focused on innovating and building that and communicating that to the fraternity and the community. Indian startups have to deal usually with Indian investors who always want to see traction, which is early revenue or partnerships or even MOUs and things like that. So they get caught up in the commercial. That is changing, by the way, thankfully. Early sign is pre-revenue, but they've already raised more than $2-3 million of funding. So it's very gratifying to see that the mindset is changing among Indian investors. But all said and done, the gap still exists. So as a result of the differences in the funding ecosystem, Indian startups tend to gravitate early on towards traction in terms of getting revenue, and sometimes takes away from the scientific capability. Silicon Valley startups stay focused. Many Valley startups get acquired even before they reach revenue, because big pharma companies in the US understand the power of the technology and acquire companies as they're entering key points of their innovation cycle. So their DNA, no pun intended, is focused on furthering the innovation. And that, I would say, is the biggest difference between Valley startups and Indian startups.
I loved it. I love your perspective on these, the difference between the people, those who are building something in Silicon Valley, and people, those who are building something in India. And one thing that I could sense from your answer, that innovation and the eagerness to build something meaningful is missing, if I'm not wrong, and to just put your soul into it and to solve the big problem of India. And that's what actually we have been seeing it. But the scenario is changing. People are coming forward and they are building something which is helping millions of people. As you mentioned that about early science.
Yeah. Sorry, a
Please.
slight correction. They want to be innovative. I think they reach points in a journey where to get funding, you have to start commercializing.
Got it.
That is not a problem Valley startups have. So that is, I think, the desire and the skill and the talent is there in both geography. But then the compulsion, shall we say, to commercialize to some extent is more imperative for Indian startups.
Got it. So apart from early sign, what are the other startups that you are associated with? Maybe as an investor, as an advisor, those who are building something great, especially in healthcare. I would love to hear about.
Yeah, there's a few. There's one that is targeting GBM, which is a deadly form of brain cancer. Today, if someone encounters that cancer, sadly, doctors refer to it as a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's largely a hopeless scenario. But the hope here lies in the fact that now this technology is to tackle this cancer. And as a result, there's some startups that are in the field early, and I'm bound to secrecy, but they are there in the market and they are building innovations and cures that will hopefully in the upcoming years be able to conquer such deadly cancer.
I would love to see more innovations like that, right?
Yes.
Like beyond funding, what kind of mentorship or ecosystem support truly accelerates healthcare startups?
I think commercialization, introducing them to hospitals, pharma partners, anyone in the biz dev world, diagnostics teams, for example, that can help accelerate their growth is something that the mentors bring to the table and is often needed. Startups do have their connections, but maybe they reach a plateau in terms of how much they can execute and grow beyond outside help, or they need to hire a big inside sales team, sales and marketing engine to execute on that. But help from advisors and founders is often very helpful and timely.
We have been looking a lot of innovations, a lot of startups, and we keep talking about it on different platforms. And looking ahead from now to next 5 to 10 years, what skills should healthcare professionals build today if they want to stay relevant in the innovation economy as of now?
Right. So innovation economy, let's just equate that to startups. To build a good startup, you need to understand healthcare holistically. What are the gaps in current healthcare and how these could be addressed through new age technologies like AI and machine learning. So to be skilled at AI and machine learning is, if you break that up, you need to be savvy in locating sources of data and generating as well as absorbing data at scale. So literally anything, any innovation in the future will be predicated on the ability to capture and harness data through next gen AI and ML model. Now, these innovations could be from preempting any kinds of deadly disease, to cures, to anything in between. But I'm a firm believer in preemption and catching something early, because the moment you prevent something or catch it in the early stage, as we have seen in early science example, is literally the difference between life and death. So if you catch something before it even occurs, you can cure it today. There's technology available for that. If you catch it early on or when it's just begun spreading, God forbid, even then it's not all is lost. It's, well, to a large extent you can contain it. The moment anything, and of course this line of thinking is geared towards cancer, but a lot of it is applicable to other diseases also. It spreads beyond a point, then cures become harder and harder. Costs go up for you. So not just is the economics less tenable, it's also the pain and the angst that one has to go through when you have a disease that is not caught early. So any innovation that is predicated on catching catching a disease early before it occurs or at the very early stage will do well if executed in a correct manner. And the skills, like I said, I think we covered the skills: AI, machine learning, technology. You need to be futuristic in that, and you need to have finance savvy. So you need to understand business growth. You need to how to associate with investors, valuation. It's a good part of the game. People good at that will succeed above and beyond just the skills at innovation.
Great. So these
Right.
are the questions from the domain of healthcare, right? And the startup perspective, and somebody who is building something startup. I would ask you one personal question from you. What exactly you do? You have some spare time, and apart from just professional life, what exactly you do? And I read about you, like you are really fond of sports. How this sportsmanship life helps you in your work?
Right. I've been a sports enthusiast my whole life. Uh, as a player, as someone who follows numerous sports, both across India and the US, and lived in both geographies. And it's in a strange but very understandable way intertwined with health. People that play sports tend to be inclined towards regular exercise and being fit, and that usually translates into better health in a holistic way. So I think it's not that separate necessarily from what I do in healthcare. In fact, there's a lot of intersection points in the innovation economy between sports and health, because athletes now want to they want to preempt injuries. They want to prevent injuries. And preventing injuries is not like before, where you used to warm up before a sport and all that. There's prevention and preemption is highly customized. So someone who's 6 feet tall with a certain muscle mass versus someone playing the same sport who's 5'9" and with a different disposition. Uh, the the exercises and the training required to perform at an optimal level, as well as avoid injuries, involves a lot of healthcare elements of understanding your personal health makeup and dietary needs and all that. So there's a lot of intersection areas between sports and healthcare. So it all reaches one happy medium at one point.
I loved it. I have one last question for you. What worries you right now, right at this stage, the most? It can be personal, it can be professional. That's my last question for you.
I worry that India's biotech ecosystem will not grow beyond a point, that it will reach a plateau. It's a function of not enough investors, all the way from angels to VCs to Ps, believing in India's biotech ecosystem. It's a function of acquirers, M&A players, which is usually big pharma in an economy, not believing in the potential of a biotech company to help grow their top and bottom line, which is, by the way, rampant in today's in India's economy today. Big pharma doesn't make acquisitions at a rate anywhere close to their US counterparts. So when a biotech company reaches a certain inflection point, they almost always raise capital from outside of India. They look to flip their structures to outside of India, typically US or maybe Europe or Singapore. You just a better valuation, discovery, and realization. So that will have to change in India. It'll be a function of everywhere from state-of-the-art education in biotech. Institutions will have to teach innovation in a meaningful way. Incubators, accelerators, investors, partners, pharma players, government, regulation, IPO needs will have to change at least significantly, if not dramatically, to absorb the growth of biotech in India to make it viable. And if that doesn't happen, then my fear is that biotech innovation in India will remain limited. But I'm optimistic it won't happen. I'm optimistic it will grow exponentially and in a non-linear trajectory, at which point we, when I say we as in India, will be the focal points for innovation that will find cures for deadly diseases like cancer, diabetes, asthma, sickle cell, you name it. A lot of innovation can germinate from India.
I definitely agree with you, and I believe that this conversation will help a lot of startup founders, especially not only into the healthcare but in different domain as well. They can relate themselves, their work, how to scale any startup or how to develop any idea, from idea to scaling, articulation, coming to the investors and to build something and to help millions of Indians. So I personally would like to thank that you spared some time to come on the White Code Network and to share your ideas, your thoughts. And so from the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you. And people, those who will watch it, and they will definitely get a great insight from your conversation.
Thank you, Satyan. It was a real pleasure.
And in last, I always ask this question to everyone whenever we invite any respected guest on our platform: what improvements we can do on our platform, the White Code Network?
I think you're doing a really good job. The growth is can be seen by anyone who follows your network and the insights and all that. I think a slightly more diverse audience, maybe you should talk to people across the ecosystem, advisors and VCs like me. You should talk to angels that are active in funding biotech startups, because they bring in a very unique insight and a certain conviction in investing in biotech in India. You should talk to biotech founders and incubators associated with primary universities that are spawning healthcare startups in a meaningful way. I think that will add to the richness and variety of your podcast and the community.
Sure. Thank you so much. We would definitely love to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sachin.